Try to relax, forgo the stress. Something ain't popping and you look a mess. Here's a suggestion, I hope it works for you. You better chill.
Ooh. You are listening to WWPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 with your hostess with the mostest, local jazz diva, yours truly, Khadija Renee. Welcome to the second episode of Women in Jazz. What do you think of when you hear the word jazz? Do you think of a group of men playing together melodically in syncopation, taking a melody and creating various different variations of tones, and then veering off into solos, and then coming back down to a crescendo, quite artistically and quite beautifully, and creating either an original composition or making play on a standard? All men. Yeah, that's normally the picture we paint when we think about the word jazz. However, this series, Women in Jazz, will expose the elephants in the room, the women in jazz who also played instruments, composed compositions, arranged, produced, and led bands. How about that? Last month, we showcased an American jazz drummer named Sherry Miracle, who leads her own 12-piece all-female orchestra called the Diva Jazz Orchestra, as well as her own smaller units like a trio, a quintet, and a quartet. But this week, we're going to present, posthumously, the late, great jazz trombonist, Melba Liston. Yes, she was a great female artist, and she played with some of the biggest names in jazz. And I'm happy to bring to you today her story. These women faced discrimination. Sexism was the fabric that was weaved into their lives, into their passions, but they prevailed, and some of them even skyrocketed to fame and notoriety. However, many of them remained obscure. But if you ask them, they all had a ball. So, let me just read to you a little bit of the bio of Melba Liston. And it's available on the internet at Wikipedia. So, who was Melba Liston? Melba Liston was a music composer. Melba Doretta Liston was an American jazz trombonist, arranger, and composer. She was the first woman trombonist to play in big bands during the 40s and all the way through the 60s. But as her career progressed, she became better known as an arranger, particularly in partnership with the great pianist Randy Weston. Well, she was born in Kansas City, Missouri. And at the age of 7, Melba's mother purchased her a trombone. Her family encouraged her music pursuits as they themselves were music lovers. Liston was primarily self-taught, but she was encouraged by her guitar-playing grandfather, who spent significant time with her, learning her and teaching her to play spirituals and folk songs. At the age of 8, she was good enough to be a soloist in a local radio station program. And then at the age of 10, just 10, she moved to Los Angeles, California, where she was classmates with the great Dexter Gordon and friends with Eric Dolphy. So after playing in youth bands and studying with Alma Hightower, she joined the big band, led by band leader Gerald Wilson in 1944. Let's hear what Gerald thought of Melba.
I've always chosen people for their musicianship, regardless of their gender, and their color had nothing to do with it. In my first band, I had a young Mexican trombone player, and I also had a young lady who played trombone. Her name, of course, Melba Liston. Melba, an accomplished musician. At the time that I met her, she was playing lead trombone and solos in the Lincoln Theater Orchestra with Badu Ally. Also in that same band, and we just mentioned his name, was the great Charles Brown was also in that band. But anyway, I went over to choose people for my band that I was organizing. This was the first band I ever organized. And Melba Liston attracted me right away with her great playing and her great musical ability. She could write, she could arrange, she could orchestrate. She could do it all. And she had heard of me, and she wanted to be in my band. I would like to say at this time, I do not believe there is any other female in the world that can beat Melba arranging, orchestrating, or composing. She has a musical mind that's unbelievable.
Melba recorded with saxophonist Dexter Gordon in 1947, and then she joined Dizzy Gillespie's big band, which included the great saxophonist John Coltrane, Paul Gonzalez, and pianist John Lewis. In New York for a time, when Wilson disbanded his orchestra in 1948, was when she played with the Dizzy Gillespie band. Liston performed in a supporting role and was nervous when asked to take solos, but with encouragement, she became more comfortable as a featured voice in the band. She toured also with Count Basie and with Billie Holiday. Why don't we listen to a song that Melba played with the Dizzy Gillespie Big Band in 1956, recorded live in South America, called Flamingo. Enjoy.
Like a flame in the sky, flying over to my lover nearby. Flamingo in your tropical hue, speak of passion and a love that is true. The wind, a song to him as you go, the song that I hear below, the murmuring pond. When the sun meets the sea, say farewell to my love and hasten to me. I hear below the murmuring fall. Love me. When the sun meets the sea, say farewell to my love and hasten to me. Say farewell to my lover and hasten to me.
Thank you. He'll be back. He'll be back. He hasn't earned his money yet.
While Melba was touring with Count Basie and Billie Holiday, she was so profoundly affected by the indifference of the audiences and the rigors of the road that she gave up playing and turned to education and taught for about 3 years. I'm wondering, as a female artist and playing such an odd instrument as the trombone, just what challenges Melba faced. Why don't we get first-hand information from the person that she left her legacy to, her first cousin, Sandra Newman. We'll speak to her on the phone. Let's talk to Sandra Newman from Los Angeles, California. Hi, Sandra. It's Khadija Renee from Women in Jazz Series in Philadelphia, PA. How are you today?
I'm fine, and yourself?
Pretty good. I'm so excited to talk to you, the first cousin of Melba Liston, the great jazz trombonist. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you again?
All right. I'm wonderful. I wanted to ask you a few questions about Melba's career. Can you start off by telling us how close were you and Melba?
Well, Melba was the daughter of the oldest of the, and my mother was almost a baby. So we were first cousins, but Melba was old enough to be my mother or close to grandmother. There's a big age difference. I'm way far behind everybody in my generation. So I was the baby first cousin, if so to speak, if you can get that.
Yeah, I understand that, the baby cousin. I get it. So tell me, how did you start becoming aware that Melba wanted to play the trombone?
I was so young. When I was young, she was already involved. She had already been with Dizzy Gillespie. She had done work with Quincy Jones when I was a little kid. She had done things with Kim Winston and all those different people and Randy Weston and all that. So I was a young girl. When I grew up in elementary school, I knew she played the trombone. All my life, she played the trombone. And, she was well into it.
I see. Did she?
Yeah. She used to take me to she took me to sessions and she wanted me to play the instrument and also, she gave me a lot of insight on that world.
I see. What did she tell you about her biggest break in the jazz music genre? What was she really excited about doing?
Well, she liked making music. It was a part of her. The way she walked, the way she talked, even when she wasn't, when I was young, you know how they say great minds are a little different, or eccentric people, they're just a little different. Melba was always different, and she was always a creative person. You could just see it, So what she liked to do was create music. She liked seeing her music being, like making music for other folks and it just going and spreading. She was real serious about it also.
I see. Of course she was, because she was an arranger and composer and created a lot of her own compositions.
Right. You would think sometimes she was grouchy or difficult, but when she was in her zone and it was about music, it was like it was about music. It's nothing else. You know, she came up for a little food and air, and then she'd get right back into it.
You said she took you to some sessions. Do you remember anybody that was around in those sessions, or who was she recording with in those sessions?
I do and I don't. I was really young. I was in elementary school, so you know the names I knew. While I was, then shortly after me going to the sessions with her, she ended up in Kingston with the women's jazz band that she had, and she left and she lived back and forth in New York a lot. So with me being in California, in Los Angeles, most of the stuff was hearsay. But the sessions that I did go to, a lot of times there would be people like, Randy Weston, who else?
Randy Weston, yes. Phenomenal piano player from Africa.
Right. I only heard about Quincy. I didn't get to see him actually myself. Mm-hmm. And, there were people that were probably, because I was so young, I couldn't pinpoint them. I'm sure if I thought about it or looked it up, I could say, oh, yeah. But right offhand, those are like two that I knew she was working with,
right.
At the time.
She made many recordings with both of them, actually, Quincy Jones and Randy Weston. I understand.
Right. And then I also know, it's just like in today's world, they have ghostwriters and things like that. She did a lot of stuff like that, writing for people that wasn't notarized, you know what I'm saying? And other folks got the credit for it. So It was like, that was a part of it.
Did you meet any of the ladies in her all-female band that she established?
No, I really didn't. Even though we went to New York to join her a couple of times, I didn't get to meet them because, like I said, I was younger. So I probably stayed home, but the adults all went, like my mom and the rest of my aunts and everybody else, they got to go. I just get to hear about who they were and how well it was. I saw a lot of tapes and videos of stuff when I was younger. I have some things, but a lot of stuff we donated, so that it wouldn't disappear.
I understand.
And would go on.
Yes, because you were the baby cousin, so you didn't get a chance to see a lot of her performance live, you're saying.
I mean, I was there. She always had a studio where she lived, so when she lived around or we went to her house, I always, I would see sessions, but it was normal for me, so it wasn't like something I'm going to take note of. It's like, oh, that's him, oh, that's her. So it was famous people there, but not so much. Maybe they were famous to the industry, but not names most people would notarize,
I understand.
Or would know right offhand.
What would you say was her greatest accomplishment in her music?
I think when her greatest accomplishment was when they always called her the masculine trombonist. And by her being a female in that industry years ago, from being 17, long ago, it was good when she crossed over and started having her own bands and doing the things like that, even when jazz started not to be in the forefront, when they started putting different types of other music out there as much. Jazz was still popular, of course, as it is today. But, there were so many other things coming out, but she was coming out with her own thing, like when she formed her own band. I think the female bands were like her biggest accomplishment besides composing, things that she composed,
Exactly.
Because, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
She, because of all the things being a woman in that field that she had to go through.
Like what? Can you give me an example? What did she share with you about her struggles as a female musician?
Well, because of the time, women weren't really respected, to put it nicely. Not that everybody was a bad guy or mean, but if things happened, it wasn't even, people didn't even, like they overlooked it. They didn't say anything. It would be okay to just act like it didn't have or give a blind eye to it. So, there was abuse, she always would warn me about, you know, when you're around a bunch of men, don't think that they ever forget you're a woman, you know. And you can kind of imagine what she meant by that. And, you know, different things like that. And then being, looked over in her field, even though she might have been better than others because she was a woman. You know, you might get looked over, and you have to find your niche and don't give up and don't settle, you know, for things. Just because they don't catch you, you'll get that niche. You'll get in.
Yeah, and she certainly did find her niche, that's for sure.
Right.
But I saw in her bio that she actually stopped playing music for a time. You have any idea what happened?
Well, the times that she stopped playing, I think it was, you know, the first time, besides her being sick, I think it was a little frustration and, you know, like, I'm done with this. And I think everybody goes through that a little bit. But it wasn't, you know, like, talked about a lot. You know, it's like how you say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. But then that spark never left. So it wasn't long, you know, it wasn't often. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right.
She always had her foot in the door some kind of way. It just wasn't mainstream at one point in time. And then when it's not paying you, you know, you got to take care of yourself and things like that.
I understand. Well, Sandra, what would you like for our fans to get out of the story of Melba Liston, a great female African-American jazz trombonist struggling in an all-male dominated genre such as jazz? What would you like for the fans to take away from this story?
Well, with it being like #1 Black History Month, being a black woman, it's something that we can learn that, you know, your struggle is not alone. And it's not, even though we're talking about jazz, for women, sometimes it's in every industry that you can name. But in jazz, I think that you have to know what you're dealing with. Once you know what you're dealing with, that you're able to fight the struggle. And if it's your like, heart's desire, like it was Melba's, like that's what she wanted to do. She didn't let those things stop her, you know, falling down. Even when she had her stroke, she continued to write music, and she enjoyed giving up her craft to others. If that's understandable. That it's not going to be easy, but you can't give up, and anything worth having is worth working for.
I see.
You know, and that's what she did. She went through a lot, but I think she would probably do it again to get where she was. You know, she learned some lessons, but I think she would do it again because she really loved music.
Yes, she did. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy life. I understand that she left you the rights to her music.
Right.
So you were a special person in her life, the baby cousin.
I wasn't, so was my, you know, it was just that I was the only one in my generation that was a baby. You know, everybody else was older. So I got lucky in that area that where everybody kind of took to me. And Melba especially, you know, she bought me my first pedigree French poodle. And, you know, she just was real special and taught me a lot of things in life that, you know, I might not have got to know had she not been in the life that she had.
I see.
Or the lifestyle. Yes.
Where did she spend her final days?
In Los Angeles.
Okay.
Right in the Sugar Hill. They call it Sugar Hill. Not too far from where Marvin Gaye's parents lived.
Oh.
Well, right.
She lives in.
So it was it was off of Arlington and Adams.
Okay.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, well,
nice,
we're going to cut to listen to some more of her music, and we really appreciate you giving us this rich content and helping us to touch the life of a great woman who was a pioneer in a sector of music that wasn't that friendly to a woman unless she wanted to be on the microphone singing. So thank you for sharing the life of Melba Liston with us. And we'll continue to honor her in the Women's History Month, actually. This will air in March, and so right on time for Women's History Month. So this is a woman that we want young girls to know about, how she trailblazed the path for young African-American women in a very challenging environment, and she accomplished a lot of success and was well respected by her peers in the music of jazz. Thank you, Sandra.
I'd like to thank you also for giving her an opportunity to be heard and sound and sing. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care now. Drive careful out there.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Sandra Newman, first cousin of Melba Liston, acclaimed American jazz trombonist. For a time, Melba took a clerical job for some years and supplemented her income by taking work as an extra in Hollywood. She appeared in a movie called The Prodigal in 1955 and The Ten Commandments in 1956. Then she returned to Gillespie's band for tours sponsored by the U.S. State Department in 1956 and 1957. She recorded with Art Blakey's Jazz Messengers in 1957 and formed an all-woman quintet in 1958. In 1959, she visited Europe with the show Free and Easy, for which Quincy Jones was the music director. She accompanied Billy Eckstine with the Quincy Jones Orchestra on At Basin Street East, released on October the 1st, 1961 on the label Verb. Let's hear a selection of Melba with the Quincy Jones Band called Trolley Song. Enjoy this cut and we'll be right back. In the 1960s, Melba began collaborating with pianist Randy Weston. She was arranging compositions, primarily his, for mid-sized to large ensembles. This association especially strong in the 1960s, would be rekindled in the late 1980s and in the 1990s until her death.
Alrighty then, let's listen to another tune from Melba Liston's album, Melba Liston and Her Bones, featuring an array of all-star jazz musicians, called You Don't Say.
In addition, she worked with Milt Jackson, Clark Terry, and Johnny Griffin, as well as working as an arranger for Motown. How many of you knew that? She was appearing on albums by Ray Charles as well. So she had a really diverse approach to music. She didn't just stick to one thing. She spread her talents around. And in 1964, she helped establish the Pittsburgh Jazz Orchestra. Yes, and the Pittsburgh Jazz Festival is coming up soon as well. I wonder if they will be given some honor to Melba Liston for her role in establishing the Pittsburgh Jazz Orchestra. In 1971, she was chosen as musical arranger for Stax recording artist Calvin Scott, whose album was being produced by Stevie Wonder's first producer, Clarence Paul. On this album, she worked with Joe Sample and Wilton Felder of the Jazz Crusaders, blues guitarist Arthur Adams, and drummer Paul Humphrey. In 1973, she moved to Jamaica. That's what her cousin was telling us. She lived in Kingston, Jamaica, and she taught at the Jamaican School of Music for 6 years before she even returned back to the United States to lead her own bands. During her time in Jamaica, she composed and arranged music for the 1975 comedic film Smile Orange, starring Carl Bradshaw, who 3 years earlier starred in the first Jamaican film, The Harder They Come. She was forced to give up playing in 1985 after a stroke left her partially paralyzed. But she continued to arrange music with Randy Weston. And in 1987, she was awarded the Jazz Masters Fellowship of the National Endowment for Arts. So she's an NEA Jazz Master. After suffering repeated strokes, she died in Los Angeles, California in 1999, a few days after her tribute to her and Randy Weston's music at Harvard University. Her funeral at St. Peter's in Manhattan featured performances by Weston with Jan Parker, as well as by Chico O'Farrell's Afro-Cuban Ensemble and by Lorenzo Sehab on vocals. So what social challenges did Melba Liston, an African-American female trombonist, face in the genre of music in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s? Well, Liston was a female in a profession with mostly males. Although some consider her an unsung hero, she is highly regarded in the jazz community. Liston was a trailblazer. As a trombonist and a woman, she articulated difficulties of being a woman on the road. Quote, "There's those natural problems on the road, the female problems, the lodging problems, the laundry, and all those kind of things that try to keep yourself together. Problems that somehow or other guys don't seem to have to go through."
This next composition by Melba Liston is called Pow. It's off of her album that she created in 1958. It features such jazz icons as Jimmy Cleveland, Al Gray, Slide Hampton, Benny Green, Bernie Powell, and Frank Remax. It was recorded for the Metro label on the Fresh Sounds Records label. So, give a listen to Pow.
She goes on to recount the struggle she's experienced as an African-American woman, which affected her musical career. However, generally spoken, positively about the camaraderie with and support of her male musicians. Liston also dealt with larger issues of inequity in the music industry. One writer said, it was clear that she had to continually prove her credentials in order to gain suitable employment as a musician, as a composer, as an arranger.
Give a listen to Swinging, a tune composed by Melba Liston and her all-female jazz band from the 1940s.
She wasn't paid equitable scale and was often denied access to the larger opportunities as a composer and arrangers. And so, fans of women in jazz, this is one of the reasons why we're doing this program, because we want to encourage women of all ages, of all musical genres, to realize that you are facing a challenge that shouldn't be a challenge simply because of your gender. Why should we have to continually prove as women our abilities and talents? Why aren't we just accepted for what we can do and not for what gender we are? So this show will continually forecast and present to you women who are excellent in their particular chosen fields, such as Vi Red and Marion McPartland and Shirley Scott, and other women who have trailblazed and have made enormous contributions to the genre, but yet are unsung. So stay tuned as we continue to forecast these phenomenal women that you probably have not heard of. Featuring in April, we hope to present the program on local jazz organist, the great late Shirley Scott. Stay tuned. This presentation will air on Monday evenings at 7:30 in the months of March and April, and every month, every Monday night at 7:30 on Comcast channels 29 and 30. You can find us on Verizon Xfinity channel 66, 966, and 967. Also, this program, the Women in Jazz series from phillycam.org, will be simulcast on our radio station, WWPM 106.5 LP Philadelphia, on Sundays at 1 o'clock. That's 106.5 LP Philadelphia at 1 o'clock every Sunday for the months of March, April, and continually. So tune in and send us an email at Renee, R-E-N-E-E, Queen, Q-U-E-E-N-A, at AOL.com. Or visit my website, www.khadijarenee.com, and Khadija is spelled K-H-A-D-I-J-A-H, Renee, R-E-N-E-E.com, and send me a comment and let me know what you think of the history of these women that we're presenting. And if you have any ideas, if you know a woman who really excelled at her craft in the music of jazz, please get in contact with me and share that information with me so we can share it with our audiences. And so, you have been listening to WWPM 106.5 FM on Comcast channels 29 and 30, Verizon Xfinity channel 66, 966, and 967. Tune in for us next time as we present a new unsung heroine, women of jazz. Namaste.
The road of life can be slick and steep. I hope you're looking before you leave. Resist temptation, baby, I'll catch you.